This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
GPS, how are you this beautiful weekend?
I'm well, sir. I'm well. A little tired, but that's the cost of doing business. How are you? You have an unusual background there.
Yeah, I do. I'm sitting. I could not get into the building where I normally do this when I'm out of town, so I'm making do. But I have a question. You're a little tired, but hearing Dawson's voice, you were at a comedy club last night, correct?
It was a theater that was converted into a comedy club for the purposes of last night. Yeah, I was watching a comedy special that was a talented comedian, and she was filming her, I would say it was about a 45-minute special, and it had a theme. Kind of the title was Sorry Mom, Sorry Jesus, and she had a whole through line. It was pretty fun. It was great.
And should we promote it, or are you under an NDA?
I'm not under an NDA, but I also don't know when or where it's coming out. So last night was just the filming. So I would say stay tuned to the Los Angeles Magazine socials, and when it finds a home or when it's going to be released, I would imagine we might put it out there. We put the advertisement for the recording out there a couple times over the course of the last month, so you may have seen that.
Okay, got it. And speaking of filming, before we got on here, and shout out to Brett, who is our fearless researcher who suggests stories. And Gary, I'm going to channel Gary's pain because I always inevitably bring up a story that is off the beaten path. And he has no warning. And literally, while I was waiting for you, Gary, somebody sent me is it Fat Joe who just got sued by and I was going to ask you to interpret this because I don't understand it. His hype man.
Yeah.
And
okay. So,
what is a hype man?
Okay. So I will disclose here.
Are you going to be my tour guide through this? Because I'm obviously betraying my ignorance.
And I'm going to betray my age, and I will admit that my whiteness is about to show through very, very possibly. But my understanding of a hype man was back when I was young and going to rap concerts was when you are a singular rapper who is on stage singing along to your songs. You don't necessarily have the breath ability to go through and sing every single word. So oftentimes you would have someone on stage with you who is hyping up the crowd and, shouting positive things kind of as the song goes on or while the chorus is going and just getting the crowd hyped up. So that is my understanding of what a hype man is.
A hype man. Now, I'm old enough to remember when at the Tonight Show or at other shows where they have a studio audience, they have somebody who comes and hypes them up before the show itself.
Sure. So that's like in my experience, that's also referred to as audience warm up and stuff like that. This is more on stage while the performance is happening, at least in my understanding. It's sort of your right hand man, your sidekick. Famously, Eminem's hype man was a gentleman from his rap group named Proof, who was tragically shot and killed in Detroit a handful of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And that was a big moment in the rap community.
So the hype man for Fat Joe, you know who Fat Joe is?
I do. Famously, I would say probably his most famous song was called Lean Back.
Right. And what year was Lean Back? I'm
01 maybe, I'm guessing, but let me check here. I'm sure I can figure that out.
It was kind of the unofficial.
04. Okay. 04.
Yeah, I was going to say 04 because it was kind of the unofficial anthem while we were trying Peterson.
Okay.
It was Lean Back. So I remember it well from then. The crew was always singing that. Now his hype man is apparently suing him, is what I just saw. I just glanced at this. Is that true?
I did see that. Yeah, $20 million. He's accusing him of sex trafficking, and I believe Fat Joe has vehemently denied it and said that it's an extortion ploy. But I like you have only seen the headlines. I've scrolled on social media.
And what I saw, and I'd love to know who the lawyer is who's representing the hype man, because what I saw, and admittedly it could just be a clickbait headline, was that the hype man is saying that for 16 years, it's an awful long time, that 16 years, Fat Joe had him perform sex acts for Fat Joe's pleasure. And
over 4,000 I'm seeing from headlines and stories that I'm quickly trying to scan, and leave your comments about my eyes. I don't care.
That would be to the audience.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think unless you've got 6 or 8 burner accounts, which I wouldn't put past you, to be honest. But no, that's for the audience, and that's mostly to make you laugh. But yeah, from what I'm seeing in the articles that I'm quickly scanning, it looks like Fat Joe's got Takapina on his side, but I don't see the name of the lawyer for the hype man yet.
And this guy with a straight face is suing because he was forced to have sex acts. Is he saying that these sex acts were forced, coerced,
minors, and I believe he's also including trafficking. Again, this is me doing headline keyword searches as I speak to you.
Do
here.
We know who the lawyer is for the hype man?
No, that's so far I'm coming up empty on. I'm only seeing that Fat Joe's got Takapina. That's the only lawyer I've been able to find in my quick. We ought
to get Joe on next week if this gains any traction. I'd love to talk to Joe about this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be very interesting.
I love it. Now, Brett had a couple of stories that were very interesting this week, didn't you think?
Yeah, the one about the dogs in New York I thought was particularly headline grabbing, if nothing else.
You want to set it up? And this is a throwback. We'll see if anybody can remember. 10 years ago, I had represented a gentleman by the name of Leon Rosby. Leon Rosby, before there was all of the brouhaha 10 years ago, was filming, I think it was the Hawthorne PD, and he was filming the Hawthorne PD, as I remember it, and I don't know if I've got the facts straight, so I'm doing this from memory, had a kind of military style vehicle that they were invading a house and executing either a warrant or something else. Leon jumped out of his car, was filming this from behind wherever the police line was. Police came over to take him into custody or turn him around as Leon was filming the Hawthorne PD doing this. His dog jumped out of the car, came, and the cops ended up shooting and killing the dog. And Leon, for that misdemeanor committed of filming the cops doing that, which I never understood why that was a crime in the first place. By the time that got to court, it was 9 felonies. And after much machinations, we finally got everything dismissed. I won't relitigate that, but we did sue after that. And one of the defenses that was used was that killing the dog, you had no value basically, and there was no cause of action for killing the dog. We did prevail, however. Now, fast forward 10 years later, Gary, you can set this up.
So in this case, there's no law enforcement component, but the ruling has been made by a New York judge that dogs can be considered immediate family, and therefore you can sue for distress after an out-of-control driver ran a stop sign and killed a Dachshund that was being walked in New York. And in the articles, this apparently was just a couple months after the Dachshund was dressed up in a tuxedo and walked down the aisle at its owner's wedding, and they have him all dressed up as a hot dog and all kinds of other cute things. So it's a pretty adorable article that we can link to somewhere. But yeah,
maybe even LA Maggot. It sounds like the kind of case that somebody could write about.
Yeah, I think that can be on LA Mag on Monday morning. No problem. I'll throw up the picture of the tuxedo just for the audience who's watching on YouTube, because it is pretty cute. So there you go. There's the pup in question. And unfortunately, out of control driver blows a stop sign, and this doggy did not make it as a result. And a New York judge has ruled that they can be considered immediate family, and the distress that was suffered by the owner and the person who was walking it at the time, which I believe was the owner's father or parent I'm unclear on the sex of the person walking it, was they're both entitled to sue for emotional distress.
I obviously am close to this from the other case from 10 years ago, and obviously a dog owner. The dogs are. I've got the dogs at home and no kids, so
I got the dogs at home and the kid, and then I've got the dog. I've got the dog bed in the office as well. So I get a free.
Right, and I think they legitimately, the dogs serve as companions to the point where I've always thought it was kind of artificial to make that distinction that you couldn't have the same kind of distress from watching your dog get killed as you would in watching a loved one get killed.
I know there are different kinds of dog owners, but for the kind of dog owner that I am and that I know you are, I completely agree. It is even when they reach the end of their lives and you have to say goodbye, it is an emotionally taxing time. It takes, some weeks, months, and years to get over and to really come to terms with. Even when you've had a full life and gotten to enjoy and nurture them and let them nurture you, it's a relationship. So I'm glad that this ruling was made. I think it's the correct one.
Yeah, and part of the I was thinking about when I saw the article when Brett gave it to me, and then I was on the plane and there were two dogs on the plane. Interestingly, the guy who had the German Shepherd on the plane, the first thing he said to me is that he's a longtime friend of Adam's and he had bought a seat for the German Shepherd. And I can you imagine what was going through my head?
I want to fact check that story. How long okay. Well, anything's possible. I guess buying the seat maybe would assuade Adam a little bit, but a German Shepherd is quite the breed to have on a plane. But okay.
It apparently was the German Shepherd's first flight, and I don't know what he gave the dog to knock it out, but the dog was unbelievable for a.
Sounds like a little doggy Xanax or something.
I think there was. And then there was, to my right, was another dog in a container. And this guy told me that dog was 18 years old, had a little bit of dementia and blind and hearing loss, but a cute dog as well. I mean, so it was kind of, I was in the kennel in first class, though.
Well, wow. First class seat for a German Shepherd. I'm, that does not sound like a friend of Adam's to me, but
the guy claimed he was a friend of Adam, a longtime friend of Adam's. So I thought of you immediately when he told me that. I was trying to sort through in my brain, first class seat for the dog, friend of Adam sitting behind me. It just.
I've got to say, Mark, if I'm sitting next to you on that flight and that gentleman provides you that information, I'm looking for my own form of doggy Xanax to try to not talk to that guy the whole flight and try to litigate whether or not this friendship is real. What kind? I mean, there's so many holes here that my personality, I would have a hard time just shutting the hell up and allowing the flight to go on without me becoming a litigator. So
yeah, well, I can understand it. Then there was one other story that Brett had mentioned that I also thought was interesting.
The Supreme Court one?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was I don't know if he mentioned this one, but I was reading the article today. There is a lot of chatter, and I don't remember if this is what Brett had talked about, but Justice Jackson's footnote, where she's calling out the textualism as pretextualism, basically, is the way to put it, and that the intent of Congress is where the statutory construction should first go. And it was a rather, for those in the law, a SCOTUS footnote has taken outsized influence in terms of the discussion going back and forth. In fact, there was a great article, I think it was on Above the Law this morning, that I was reading, and the author was detailing the fact that it's rare for a footnote to take on such kinds of importance, but it was the author's, at least, standpoint. It was a takedown of the textualism that was engaged in by Gorsuch.
Yeah, he was referencing the Supreme Court ruling on the Tennessee law and affirming that they were within their rights to continue with their ban on gender affirming care, if my understanding is correct. I will admit I have not dug into the weeds on this one, so I would feel a little out of my depth trying to opine on it myself. But I definitely did see the headline and read a little bit about it.
The other person, besides Joe Tacopina, I'd love to get David Ladd on here and talk to him and do a whole Supreme Court show. So that's another one, because there's some really interesting cross currents that are happening at the Supreme Court. When I talk about cross currents, you and I have talked for years about 333, and there are some movements being made, and I'd love to get David's his wonderful take on it, because he does one of my favorite things to read is his Sunday column. I call it a column that shows my legacy media bias, but he does a Sunday Substack that is really a great roundup of what's going on in the law, and specifically SCOTUS. And so we should probably engage him, especially since we are a Sunday show as well.
That sounds good to me. And for anyone who wants to hear someone get a little bit more animated about the Supreme Court than Mark or I have in this one, I would encourage people to check out Two Angry Men, where Mark's co-host Harvey certainly got a little fired up about the Supreme Court recently. So, check that out.
I love it. Yes. And Civil War did not break out, in case anybody missed it. The prediction of Civil War did not break out. Harvey, I'll hammer back at you when I see him.
To Harvey's credit, I will say I had to go into Lebanon Alley at about 1:45 in the morning last night by myself. And I was thinking twice, checking over my shoulders, but I got in and out of there with no problems, and everything was safe and sound. So no, it is not devolved into civil war in downtown LA, and the nightlife was vibrant, and everything looked about as it did 6 months ago. So no huge changes, thankfully.
Well, good. I love to hear that. Gary, thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it. I know it's a beautiful day and you got a full plate.
Absolutely, Mark. You as well. Good luck with getting the office back online. I know how frustrating it can be when you lose internet these days. It's pretty much like losing your connection to the world. So I sympathize with you.
I feel completely untethered.
It's the worst. I mean, in my household, that means I lose television as well. I lose everything. So I certainly can sympathize, and I hope it comes back quickly for you.
Thanks, Gary. See you next week.
See you then, Mark. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.